today for 5-minute motivation, starting with what motivates you?
Ooh, what motivates me? For me, it's the idea, the concept of legacy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a word, you can probably relate to this. It's not a word I grew up with. It wasn't really something that was thrown around, an idea that was thrown around in, Celina, Ohio as a child. But as I've gotten older and sort of come into my own and figured out who I am and what I want to do and what I want to accomplish, the idea of legacy has become really important to me. Like, what sort of mark am I going to leave on the world? What will people remember me for? 100 years from now, what would they say about me? That's really the driving force in really every decision I've made. I would say probably, especially in the last 5 years or so. Once I hit about my mid-30s,
Right.
I really started thinking about my legacy a little bit more.
Things start to change in your 30s, right?
Yeah.
It's a different decade.
It's wild.
What is your most efficient time of day, and how do you schedule out that time to be that efficient?
I wish I had a wonderful answer for you about my most efficient time of day and how I schedule. I do work best with a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I found that during this pandemic, that's been a little more difficult.
Right.
I'm up at 4 a.m. every day, though. I host a national radio show, so I have to remind myself that even though I might be done with work by 7:30 or 8 some days, I've still accomplished something.
Right.
I have hosted a national radio show. I've earned a paycheck. I'm grateful to still be earning a paycheck when so many, 30-some million Americans have lost their jobs in the last couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take that lightly, but I am hard on myself sometimes because as the rest of the country wakes up, I'm ready to take a nap. And sometimes I feel guilty about that, but I'm definitely most productive early in the morning. I'm the type of guy who wakes up every single day in a good mood. It's important, though, that I start my day in a positive way. I like to say a little prayer when I first wake up. If I'm really feeling on top of my game, I meditate 5-10 minutes, something quick, or I do words of affirmation. I try to do something positive to start my day with, because I'm also the type of person, if I don't do that, I have the tendency to sort of like slowly go downhill.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily I recharge every night when I go to sleep, but if I can start off with some sort of positivity early in the morning, I'm very productive in the mornings.
Right. And choose happiness first thing.
Yeah.
All right. What is the best advice you've ever been given?
Oh, wow. I wish I could say that there was one bit of advice that somebody gave me one time that really just sort of stuck out. But I don't know that there really is. I know my mom used to say, pick yourself up, dust yourself off. And that was sort of advice that I used for a long time. As I've gotten older, though, I've realized that that's not necessarily always the most helpful or the healthiest advice, because sometimes it's okay to sit and sort of be in the moment and to feel the defeat or the loss. And I think it's in those moments that we can really grow. So I would say, I don't know if I have a best piece of advice I've been given. I like to look to people that lead with love and compassion generally. That could be anyone from Oprah Winfrey to, a teacher I had in elementary school. It doesn't have to be somebody that's living a spectacular life or an extraordinary life or accomplishing these grand things. For me, I try to stay as authentic as I can. I take my advice from other people's examples.
Mm-hmm.
I like to watch people who are doing great things with their lives, diverse people who are doing really cool things, and I try to emulate that as much as I can in my own authentic way.
Well, speaking of growth there too, what are you doing right now for your personal development?
For my personal development, I'm mostly sleeping and taking naps right now.
Yay, quarantine.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question because it really changes, not even just day by day, but hour by hour. Some days I think the healthiest thing I can do for myself is nothing. Some days I found it's okay to just be in my emotions. Yesterday I was in my emotions. I have therapy every single Wednesday afternoon, and I love my therapist. I just started last year. It's the best investment I've ever made in myself. And there were just some things, some personal stuff, some family stuff, some internal struggles that I had not really been able to tackle on my own. And so I started going to therapy last year. And so for me, that's sort of my personal time to dig in. But then I found myself just driving around Los Angeles for like an hour because I wanted to feel
therapy.
Yeah, I wanted to feel the wind on my arm. It's just the weirdest thing. I had my arm out the window and I wanted to feel, you remember being a kid and driving out through the country and sticking your arm out and you're like flying?
Right.
I wanted to feel that and feel alive again. And for me, that's what it was yesterday. Some days I'm really motivated. Some days I go for a run. Some days I read a book. Some days I go for a drive with my arm out the window.
I love that. Especially right now, because there is some sort of pressure to come out of quarantine with something to show for it. And so every day, even though you're stuck and it's in a very emotional time, we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to be so much better after all of this is over. It's tough.
Well, you know how it goes. Like, we're in this industry where we're expected to always have our game face on, to always have energy and positivity and lift people up. And you host a morning show. I host a morning show on the radio right now. And I'm supposed to bring people news, but also lighten their day every day. That's not always easy.
Right.
When you wake up at 4 a.m, the first thing you see is some doom and gloom report on, unemployment claims or more COVID deaths or something awful going on in the world. It's difficult to always stay positive, and I think that's okay. So many of my friends are using this opportunity to create new shows and to write books and to look. I've had my own show on TV. I've had a radio show. I've written a book. I've accomplished a lot, and I have so much more I want to accomplish. But right now, I'm trying not to put the pressure on myself to be a creator, or to be an influencer. I think I've posted 2 photos on Instagram since COVID-19 started.
Good for you. Oh, I'm jealous.
I don't care. I just don't care right now. And I'm in a position of privilege, though, where I am working. And I have income coming in. I have a partner who lives with me who I love and adore. And so he and I together have created some content that he put out a YouTube video the other day of our trip to Bali in January, which is wonderful. I helped him with that. That helped me feel creative. But as far as my own socials, you might get a story or 2 out of me every now and then, but that's about it.
That's good. That is what I wanted to do at this time, was do nothing. But I'm glad that we're talking at least here, AJ. Yeah. All right, finishing up, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh gosh, what would I tell my younger self? I would tell little AJ to never, ever let the opinions of others dictate how he feels about himself. I lived in my head, and still do to some degree, but for so many years, I was so afraid to be myself. And as you know, where we grew up, it's a wonderful place. There's also some closed-mindedness going on there. There's a lot of small town think that goes on there. And that's due to people just not knowing, not being exposed to different types of people and different lifestyles. And as a gay man, I wish that I'd had resources as a little kid to help me cope with my own inner demons and struggles and my own truth. Because I think what happens is it's this idea of code switching. It's just basically what that means is that you switch the code of who you are for each person you interact with. If I'm talking to a straight white guy, I'm going to talk very differently than if I talk to a black woman or a gay man, or it just changes. And that shouldn't be the case. We should be able to be ourselves always, authentically, genuinely, in any scenario. But as a gay man growing up, knowing I was gay from the time I was 5 or 6, that wasn't easy for me. And it wasn't an option for me, to be honest. I was whatever anybody needed me to be in order to me to feel safe in that moment. And I wish I didn't have to be that way. I wish I could have talked to my younger self and said, hey, just be you. Whatever that is, your parents love you, your family loves you, you will be safe. Just be yourself.